And there they all are in their alt modes together. It is worth it. I think when you get them in this structure, in this configuration, it is worth it. They are a very good looking set. They all complement one another depending what configuration or arrangement or formation you have them in. It's not to say there's not problems with getting to their alt modes. It's not to say there's problems within their alt modes themselves. But any combiner team typically looks good when all 5 or 6 members of them are assembled and they're all side by side. This is no exception. I am so tempted to keep them in their separate modes because I think they just really look the part. Good size, good weight, good depth to them. Just really, really cool. Yeah, I think if I was to say my favourite of the set, I do like Magnum. I really do like Magnum. But Rogue King is brilliant. He was the first one I handled, and I think I got a little bit spoiled because all the others didn't really match up to that. The transformation to get all of that trailer cascading into his backpack for robot mode is brilliant, and the alt mode is really good. Very sizable truck. You could argue it looks just like a Motormaster from any other third-party company, and maybe that's true. But I was just very impressed with him. I do really like Magnum as well. Aside from a slightly floppy neck, it does everything right. It's a good transformation, it's a good alt mode, and no QC problems aside from the neck. Smokey's fine, if a bit so-so in some ways. These two are combined for the weakest. I probably think Bandit is the weakest, but I really didn't like Spoiler. I was very disappointed with it. Horrible transformation, one I'm not relishing to transform back. But yeah, there they are. They look really, really cool. I'm very, very tempted to keep them this way. If it wasn't for the big accessory that I'd have to put into the battle station mode, which I'll show you in a second, that I've got lying around otherwise. But yeah, really good set. Very glad to get them all together like this. Now I'm going to be cheeky and not transform them all back into their robot modes because quite frankly I haven't got the time to get all 5 of them side by side, and you would have seen the comparisons going through the reviews of the other figures to this point, so I'm just going to put up the stock image from Fanstoys and talk through them as at least I've handled them as well. Unsurprisingly, they all look great together. They all have their own characteristics, they all complement each other in many ways, and when they're all together, like with any combining team, there is a sense of accomplishment and the set is complete. They kind of hide each other's flaws, I think. You would have seen in my review of Breakdown and Dead End with Spoiler and Bandit that I was not particularly impressed with those figures, whereas the other ones I was more impressed with, but altogether you kind of forget about that. I do think Rogue King is probably the best of the set. It does a lot with a lot. It is a big figure, it has more options to it, but it's a very good figure. Again, I was very impressed with Magnum. Apart from a couple of tolerance issues, it really did impress me. Spoiler, I was not impressed with, and it's a shame, at least in my copy, it is seemingly more faded. That is a bit of a shame. The duller aspects of Smokey, Dragstrip, I can kind of forgive and overlook. But again, I'll stand off and say that Bandit is the weakest of the set. It's just very no frills and very non-Fanstoys, if that makes sense. But the set looks really cool together in robot mode. They got a lot of presence, and I can see why people will just keep them in individual robot modes. Most combiner teams look really good side by side, and these are no exceptions. And if that isn't parts forming, I don't know what is. So I'm running this off the microphone, off the camera at the moment, just so you can see everything that's here and what we got to deal with. So this is all the individual parts that are going to make up Menasor, and as you can more or less see here, Marauder is this, and it's basically a combining frame. I'd just actually go as far as to say it's a combiner as a whole. It did fill me with a little bit of dread, I suppose, to see quite so much as a separate frame. It basically says the other limbots are just being stuck on. I guess that was always a byproduct of the feet. They were always shins more than legs, but it's really apparent when you've got feet, legs, thighs, hips, and a bit of lower abdomen as an entire separate structure. I can understand people going into making in 3D models to fill this in because it's pretty much all here. That said, there is a lot of good stuff here, so let me show you what we have. First off with the sword. Now it's a very good sword, although I've got a little bit of gappage showing at the top, and sadly, I don't know if you'll see it, you might, there's quite a bit of smudging on mine, whether that is an effect of how it's been made, but it does seem to be at the top a bit of like blow marks or smudging, less so towards the bottom. I mean, it looks cool. You get a real reflective sheen over it. And it's got some very meaty grips to it. It's quite a staple of the Menasor character, but that is, yeah, I wasn't particularly impressed. It does feel very plasticky. I know it's plastic, but you know what I mean? It doesn't feel very high-end, I suppose. Then again, it is only a sword that he's going to hold with one hand. In the other hand, holds his gun. And it's a nice enough looking rifle, if a little bit elongated on the hand. But yeah, it's cool. Just looks maybe a little bit towards the back. I'd like maybe a bit more of a backstock, but then it bumps into the combiner wrist, so it is restricted enough. But otherwise, it's a traditional Decepticon blaster. These pieces, which are going to make up effectively what go around the neck for the robot mode or combined mode for a toy deco, which I will show you what it looks like, but it comes as a separate component and will be used in the other modes as well. The famous roller, what is it called? Blackjack, if I remember. I can't remember the name of it. This is going to be effectively the toy piece, and it's also going to be used as part of the second trailer design. It's quite large, quite sizable, quite detailed as well. Nice red hues, nice clear transparent parts and some wheels on the underneath. Plastic wheels, not rubber. And a nice dark granite used. Onto the faces. This is one face that he has on, which is a bit of a placid face, but you've got one with a square chin of a very, well, they're all angry faces, it's just a different flavour of angry. But you can see the very piercing red eyes, and I do like that chin that they use, it's very cool. Even more angry face and an open mouth. Again, I wish Fanstoys would just kind of colour it in. I think it just looks a bit too sunken otherwise, but that's a very good face. I do like that one. Now, I have heard that the ones with the chins are full of more toy deco rather than Toon, and it won't fit on that head, but I'll find out more as I get there. Same again, and without the chin, bit smoother. You got the cheek designs on the side, but again, I'm loving the sculpting, particularly on the brow. A very slightly perturbed face, an upturned lip. Yeah, he doesn't really know what he is, what's going on. That's an interesting one. And that looks like he's just stubbed his toe on the corner of the bed. Which, hey, we've all done it. The arm for Dragstrip, so as you can see, it's already got a part there that's going to be the infill for the elbow, and you will have ratchets in it. Quite stiff, quite resilient, as well as the hand itself. Not so much of a sheen that their Devastator is, it's very matte plastic, but it's a similar sort of build. Spreadable fingers, quite a good spread actually. So yeah, that's quite a good one. And that will house Dragstrip. Same story with Dead End, and look, he's a Vulcan. Funny. We all get them going on, but yeah, same thing, same story. Nice ratchets we used as well. Wrist rotation to boot. And to finish off with the main event. Now, it's a little bittersweet for me, I think, because you can see that Motormaster is just going to fit as a cube in the middle here. It does kind of rubbish all of the good engineering that they did, maybe, with Motormaster, and that's kind of what I felt when I saw this. Like, all of the collapsing and the trailer forming kind of all just goes away for this. But I can't say it's not brilliant, it really is. It's going to make up a heck of a combiner come the end of it. They've thrown in a lot of accessories, it's a lot to ship, and you can see where the money's come into it. But yeah, let's get on with combining him, shall we? First things first, we'll try and put him into his trailer mode. And there is the trailer mode. Ah, that was not fun. It was okay for the most part, and I followed the transformation video that Fanstoys put up on their own YouTube page. Broadly speaking, it was okay, just a lot of steps. So this entire upper half section is the upper combiner section, his chest, his head, all the rest of it, the shoulder joints, and the entire lower half is the legs split out to the side. You kind of went through very systematically. It uses all the hands that are towards the rear of the trailer. It houses the guns. This is the arms without the hands there. You can see the yellow connector, which is part of the arm for Dragstrip, Smokey. So there was a sense of, oh, this is clever. There's a lot of panels, there's a lot of steps, and going through this upper section did remind me of transforming the Transformission or Generation Toy version. But the hard part came when it was assembling the two together, and that was just getting everything lined up. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if I got it wrong, but I think the transformation video on Fanstoys told you to have the robot head up rather than down, and I couldn't work out where I was going wrong. Also, I possibly didn't have the hips flushed out completely right. Now, additionally, and I've got it here. First things first, again, I don't think the instructions told you, but that is like a centre codpiece off the groin area. That needs to come off as part of the transformation. Don't think the video told you that. And additionally, now these bits, people might know, these are the side of the thighs that come out on a hinge. And one of them, it's only on a small connector. It pops on, pops off. I couldn't get it to fold up and go towards the centre hip skirt. It's hard to show you without imagining it, but I couldn't get it to go all the way up without it popping off, and then it protruded too far. So when it came off, I thought, well, probably better. It hasn't broken off, it's just tabbed off. But yeah, I couldn't get that to retract the entire way to get the clearance to get this to close up. A minor annoyance. It's very large, it's very weighty, and we'll get them combined up to Motor Master in a minute. But I'll try and show you the trailer itself. God, that's heavy. So it's housing the gun, and it does allegedly house a sword on the other side, but I thought I'd show you first. It just pegs into this section here that folds down, which has now just come off. How about that? That has literally just come off. Well, breakage? I don't know. No, it looks like it's on an attachable hinge, so that should clip back on. How's that for first time? Okay, there we go, we're back. And on the other side, I haven't got it fully cleaned up and tabbed in, but I spent far too long on this, and I think that's about as cleaned up as it's going to be. Now, for storing the sword, the most you can hope for, I think, is the side of this to go onto this groove here. And it does hold, but it's very flimsy, and it will fall off. So, yeah, there is a form of weapon storage of some kind, but that's how it looks. Oh, God, it's heavy. Now, these wheels, they are not great. They have one connector either side, and it's a small piece of plastic. That needed to be a lot more robust. It would have been good if there was some kind of axle going between them to kind of add the rigidness, because they just cascade and fall down all too easily. Yeah, I mean, it's not the most ground clearance on there, but... And this is the toy neck version, if you like, what builds up around the back of the head that cascades to the back. You don't have to have it on there, but again, it's all for storage. So, very, very large. Impressive, yes. Unnecessary, also yes. Now, I appreciate what they've done, but did they need to do it? Could it not have just been a base and the combiner torso? Did it need to be this additional third version? The argument's going to be, if you wanted to keep them in their alt modes, what are you going to do with it? It's going to live in a box. So Fanstoys said, well, we'll just make another trailer, and that way you can use all the parts and house all the parts. Yes, I can applaud that. There's something for every mode, but it feels unnecessary, particularly when it gets all combined up. And that is as best as I can get it. That is crazy, crazy long. That is too big. That is just obscenely large. Okay, my big issue with this is this kind of negates all of this. Motor Master, Road King, all forms up into a robot mode using these entire pieces here. It's not a separate trailer that plugs off like we've seen before. All of that makes a robot mode. That is brilliant engineering that they've done that. Fanstoys then backed themselves into a corner, and someone said this to me before, that this was always Fanstoys' idea. This was going to be how they were always going to form it right from the start. No, I do not agree with that at all. I saw the TFCon release where this secondary trailer was announced, but that was much further down the line and way after Road King was released. And where I feel that is a problem is that Road King easily could have been redesigned to just be a transforming cab, and then maybe all of this, like we've seen with DX9 and ultimately with X-Transbots as well. But straight away they said, no, we want it all in one, no separate pieces. Fine. They backed themselves into a corner and they had to do this. Now, did they have to make a secondary trailer? No. I think it could have just been a battle station, and it could have just been combiner parts, a bit like what we saw with Ethereon. Now, I will say this has got 3 modes for this set. You can have it in this, the base, or the combined form, where the aerial bot set doesn't have a individual robot section, if you see what I mean. It's flight, stand, or combined mode. So I applaud it. I applaud what it's done. I view this as a separate transformer. I view this as a 6th member, in as much as it's a triple changer, and God knows it's big enough, and God knows it costs enough. So that's kind of how I make my peace with this set. This might as well be another figure alongside Road King. given how much is here. Transformation, yeah, is not fabulous. It's clever in some ways. There's a lot of panels, and it is clever that how it does this and everything else, but it's very heavily engineered. The connector to the truck is fine enough, although I do worry about that being a lot of weight unsuspended. I mean, I don't think this is where you're to get the roller mode underneath, but it certainly could do with something here just to buffer it. I worry about that connector. It's not the most agile connector. You get a slight degree of bend, but it's not as rotationary as the front here. Otherwise, yeah, it's just kind of more of the same, really. It's not too much or too little of anything. It's just a lot to do it. And honestly, whilst I'm tempted to keep them in their vehicle modes, I am less tempted to keep it such as this because of the floor space this is going to take up. I might as well have it in combined form and at least take up space going upward. I mean, additionally, there's Dragstrip, so you can see the size we're dealing with here. And his little roller friend. Isn't it Blackjack? I do think it's Blackjack. It's fairly easy to do anything with. He's got kind of wheels. He doesn't do an awful lot, but he rolls. Plastic wheels, very easy to cascade in, but otherwise, yeah, it's another transformable piece. Now, we'll just point out from this angle, you can pull it apart to separate it, and you can see it's slightly untabbed from the back of Road King, but you do get a better arch of motion there if you pull it out, so you get a bit more of a bend there. And here it is in its base mode, I guess. It's huge, it's Titan size. I'm really surprised as to the footprint that it is. It's very, I say it's involved, it is, but if you've gone from trailer mode, it's a sense of keeping some things in the positions they were more or less in. So this is the upper section of the trailer, and that doesn't require a whole lot of change. This is his legs, as you can obviously tell. It looks very tidal wave-like. But Motormaster, of course, is split in half, just like his old toy did, which just makes me like the Road King figure more than, say, this mode. I will say not everything tabs in that securely. I haven't got Motormaster plugged in. There's a section in the middle, if you follow the transformation videos, that you're supposed to plug it into. It just doesn't do it on my copy, at least. You do plug in these feet into the base, and you plug in a couple of other bits, but everything else is quite just sitting there. I don't hate it. It does remind me of the old toy, the old Motormaster toy, but I can't say I'm going to keep it in this mode. It does look very laid bare, sprawled out, as these base modes are, but it houses masterpiece scale figures, so that's pretty good. It's listed as like a vehicle base of some description, or a workshop, repair bay, whatever you want to call it, and it certainly brings in the Blackjack mold all the more. Yeah, it's very loose, I will say that much, in as much of its connection. Again, they didn't need to do this, but I feel this is a better alternative mode for the set if you're going to have the combiner frame do something like with the flight stand for Ethereum. You're going to have something like this for this mode as well. This makes more sense than, say, a secondary trailer for one character. You can see it stores a sword towards the back of it, so that plugs in well enough. The splitting of Motormaster is very ingenious. I do like how that configures and works, but it does use every part. Although saying that, it doesn't use the hands. I don't think, unless I missed this in the combined video, that the Menasor hands go anywhere. Whether they're supposed to sit down here, I mean, you could do something with them. There's spaces for them to kind of house, but I don't think they plug in anywhere particularly. But yeah, it's something you can do. It's a very sprawled out space, so it does fit in quite nicely. And there it is. That's what 6 or 8 years looks like, all combined up. Not as easy as Ethereum. Very secure, very... what's the term I'm looking for? Very structurally sound, but not without its problems. I think it is a very good piece of engineering. There's just so many strong parts here, but you are pushing plastic on plastic to make it look how it looks. And yeah, it's good, it's clever, it's not perfect. I had real trouble with almost all of the pieces. The legs were the easiest. I don't think that comes as a surprise. Dead end wasn't too much trouble. Dragstrip, as you can probably see, is already starting to come apart, and the upper connection to Dragstrip is just not holding. Motormaster, my god, that was hard work. I had to do that about 5 times just to get it to sit in. I now do not want to take this apart and have them in their individual modes because I do not want to go through that again. But it does look very cool. It does look very large, very intimidating, and it certainly has the weight to it if there is indeed a few things off about it. Now what I'll show you is some of the other things up close. So here is a section for Dragstrip, and it doesn't connect, it doesn't bite into anything, it just kind of hangs over the top of it. And as soon as you do any kind of movement, you get the elbow connector to untab, and you can see it already starts to come away. I'm happy to admit if I've done something wrong there, but that is not feeling very secure. It's very loose, and there's actually quite a lot to do to get it to connect into its arm mode anyway. Whereas Dead End, on the other hand, was quite straightforward. You just split it in the middle, and then you put the part in the middle still. And whilst that is as kind of maximum of a bend as you'll get, it's still not as much trouble as Dragstrip is. The torso, I'll show you the back of it in a minute. You'll see where kind of the torso frame starts and Motormaster stops, but yeah, that gave me some real problems. I think that's the correct configuration for his waist. These can also rotate outwards. I went with the Fanstoys video, and that's what it had. Now I will quickly show you around the legs. This latch there, where my fingernail is very easy to miss, but that is what's keeping all of this together, and I don't think that's really explained in the instructional videos. Pull that out, and then this section is free to move, meaning that section can fold down. It doesn't really explain it, but it's a worthwhile point to mention. Here is the back of the figure. Now this is where you can see it's already starting to come untabbed. Bits were starting to fight against one another to get it all in, so I can't get that panel to stay in without pushing that clip out, and believe me, if you can get that attached, that saves you a lot of trouble. And there was this kind of door flap hinge at this section which popped off, and okay, there's not much I can do about that now. But otherwise, the legs are very good, very secure, very sturdy. I don't feel like this is going to fall over, and there's a lot of upper body weight. But yeah, the connecting of Motormaster, and you can see these are Motormaster's legs, it's almost like he wasn't designed to do that, and it just felt very uncomfortable for me. There's also these 2 gaps in the middle here, which I don't know, am I supposed to fold something up there? Maybe I've missed a step. I wouldn't be at all surprised if I had. Okay, so I'm very briefly going to show you some articulation. Can, well, look up, but then that's just the neck hinge doing the work there. Can't really look, can look down a bit actually, to be fair. That's the look up without the neck moving. Go all the way around, and that's going to be the toy head, which I'll show you that in a second. Arm articulation. Good connections on Dead End. That's all you're getting for a 90-degree bend, but good ratchets all the way. Nice hand rotation. Again, this is very similar to what Devastator's coming with. And you've got all the hands there and a wrist cock as well. Independently moving fingers and bicep rotation, though that's a little loose, which is interesting. It's a lot of weight to house. Dragstrip, well, you can see how he's jangling himself loose, and I keep having to do this back up. Maybe I did do something wrong, but it never felt the most secure connection when I was getting it into arm mode. Constantly fighting with you, constantly having to reset it. You see I'm trying to get the upper section in, it's pushing the arm part out. Maybe I've done something wrong there. Right, waist rotation, this is going to be fun. Well, you can see straight away what's happened to the arm, but there is waist rotation there and good ones. It's very stiff, very secure, but it is the two sections put together. It will allow for some posability. Lift him up. That's as much as you're getting forward. It's just under 90 degree at the hip. With the weight in place, it's hardly surprising things are moving. And knee bend at the back. I could try and not track my finger as well. Even with the cars on the back, you get 90 degrees at the knee. And a good ankle tilt as well. No toe tilt to speak of, I don't believe. And there he is holding his weapons. They're pretty easy to attach, although they do seem to be doing this kind of trigger finger way of doing things. I'll get a closer look for you. You can see how the trigger finger comes round to allow for the thumb to come round as well. It's a thing that seems to be to avoid the thumb having to be tucked away and using all hands to, or using all fingers I should say, to clip them all together. It's the same on the side of the sword, kind of the thumb comes wrapping around the top and there's this squashing of the first finger. The gun isn't my favourite. I think it looks very narrow, pistol-y, rather than say a big blaster rifle, but it is very true to him, I suppose. I think if I'm going to store anything, it's going to be with the sword. It's a shame I don't think the sword or the gun has an ability to be pegged onto his back. I've heard something that they would like it, but I don't think it is there to do so. And of course he comes with an array of faces, so this is the one that he is on with. It's very stoic, it's very normal, but like most things, you tilt the head back, off comes the underface, and we'll put on his very angry one. And that works all the better. He's always angry, all the time. Really like that. God, I wish that connector would stay better. Okay, now on to some comparisons. Here he is alongside Zeta Toys Baruticon, their version of G1 Baruticus. He's standing a bit taller, I think, maybe not from shoulder to shoulder, but obviously top of the arm to the top of the arm. I'm starting to wonder if this is showing its age, and whilst I'm very happy with it in the collection, I think it is maybe not as stylized or as clean a Baruticus as it could be, but at the same time I like the real world vehicles. This is the metallic edition, by the way, that's why it's got a slightly different or duller scheme to it. It really is quite nice and day, and this is what I use for my MP combiners. I'm still very much a fan of this, but the Fanstoys Marauder is really blowing it out of the water at the moment. It has got a lot more, it's Toon accuracy obviously, but it's got that more attention to detail even. It looks cleaner in many areas. This had a similar problem, almost as much as this. Not as much as the torso making up the body, much like with Marauder, but the folding up of Onslaught into a cube to get it into the back of Zeta here, which was quite unheard of at the time because they were the only ones really doing it. Now, of course, Fanstoys are doing the same with Motormaster. So similar housing constraints, I think is the word, but when you get them alongside, they don't look massively out of place. But this is what, a 2018 figure, maybe 2017, so it's definitely showing its age now and probably could do with an upgrade. And similarly, here he is alongside Zeta's Superitron, their version, or Kronos, their version of a G1 Superior. I still feel this has a place in the collection, and again, this is the metallic edition. It looks a little duller. Also, the light isn't fully on this part of the wall at the moment, but it does come across duller of the two in hand. But I thought I'd give you a Toon side-by-side look. Yeah, it's fine if you want to scale it with this version of Superion. I've got the arms around the other way, I know that. Yeah, it again is possibly showing its age, maybe has been surpassed by the Fanstoys release, which I'll show you a comparison in a second. But if you wanted to keep this in a Toon structure and maybe the Fanstoys version in the toy deco, that's one reason why I've still got this guy around. It gives you a straight side-by-side comparison. He's ever so slightly taller, Marauder, than Superitron, I've noticed. And alongside his creator is Takara's MP36. This is where I love Masterpiece scale combiners, true MP scale combiners. When you get them alongside a larger MP offerings, they just look like they belong there. This really works, complete with Kia Vector Sigma in hand, such a kin from the episode. Really do like it. I am coming around to this Toon Deco look. I was much more thinking toy deco, but the more I have it in this guise, the more I think it looks really cool. They look really good together. Okay, we'll do some quick adjustments into toy mode and we'll be back.
A few moments later.
And there he is in his toy deco mode. It does carry much the same problems, notably around Dragstrip, although I've got that arm a little bit more behaving since. So you can see he's got a different head on. I've had to flip that head around and take off the original face, so you can only have a face on one side, flip the antenna forward, and his front headpiece and robot mode, or cartoon mode, has to fold inwards, and that then allows you to get the rear cover off, which was on the back of his head, and put on one of the toy faces. How do you tell which one is a toy face? Basically, it has a chin. But it's cool enough. I think now I've got it in hand, I think I prefer the robot head of the two, but you can mix and match. He's obviously got his shoulder stacked around the side of his head. I think they're very cool. And Blackjack has completely extended out, more so than I thought he would, to fill up that most of the toy chest. Different section around the pelvis. These vents rotate outwards, and notably the big change is around the feet. Now let me tell you, these are more involved than you think, and I think they're right. Minor problem is that, breakdown, spoiler, one of his wing mirrors broke off. They are just on the side, they're not rubber, and yeah, it snapped off. It's to be expected. I think this is one thing I'm finding when handling this set, is breakages are not uncommon. Not integral ones, but enough when you're moving things into position. Now I will say as well, he does have an ab crunch, but I hear, and I certainly get the impression, that if you do so, a lot of the Motormaster upper torso section comes untabbed, and that took me so long to get it into position. You're just going to have to take my word for it that it's there. I do think this does promote some instability around the legs, because you are shifting, and I'll show you when you get in for a closer look, you are shifting the legs back on the knees, and so he's leaning much more forward, probably only about 1 or 2 degrees, but to accommodate for the gap for the cars, the panelling on the legs are now very far back, and so he's got more front weight, if you see what I mean, or less front stability. And I'm a little worried about it, considering the fact I've had Dragstrip fall on me a couple of times. Stability is good in a couple of areas, very good in fact, and then less so in others. It's still a hell of a lot of weight. I will say around the arms, now I've had it in 2 modes, I've just got real concerns around Dragstrip, which ironically he was very good as a robot mode. Getting him into arm mode, he is very much a liability. The one that was the worst robot mode was dead end, and he is probably a more secure arm mode than he has a right to be. So yeah, I still don't feel this way of doing a frame is the best way to do it. I think hopefully Devastator and ultimately Computron will be better, or I hope so anyway. Okay, on to some comparisons. Well, there's only one comparison left, isn't there? Here he is alongside Fanstoys Etherion, their version of a G1 Superion, in the toy deco mode. I thought I'd show you these side by side. I think these look incredible together. Just that high-end sheen, scale, toon accuracy looks fantastic. I do think Etherion is a better build overall. I have had no stability issues with this. No, I have not made it do the splits. I am not brave enough to do that. But just handling it, getting arms into positions, I think the most thing that falls off on this guy will be maybe the jolting of the arm, or the cannon out of the arm, or holding it in hand will fall out. And yes, the crumpled mess of the jets at the back. But with the legs being made up of actual robots rather than just being stuck on the shin pads, I just feel more secure with this. And of course the weight, if you like, is only from knees upwards, whereas this guy is, as I say, practically a 6-bot set, because so much of that is an additional piece. Yeah, they do have their pros and cons in so many ways, and I do really like, the more I look at him, how Menasor looks, despite the fact I wasn't really massively keen on this set. I didn't go in for it originally, and I backtracked where the aerial bots I was definitely getting. They do look so cool together, and Fanstoys could really be the de facto masterpiece scale combiner team out there going forward at the very least, if they carry on with the race of knots. And I think, just change their tact a little bit. I think when you've got this much weight, and it is the weight that is a blessing and a curse, they look brilliant, they feel fantastic, but this is so much die cast to house, and it makes the construction and the stability of them all the more challenging, to which some people will just say, well, I'll go to X-Transbots and I'll go to Zeta and Studio 01 or whoever else is around to avoid that issue of breakages of multiple £100 combiners, and I get that. But they do look good together. I really can't say they don't. They look fantastic. If there is indeed some issues, I don't want to say fundamental issues, but persistent issues here. So what is my review on this Peacekeeper? It does give me some cause for concern, in as much as the amount of weight that's here and stability issues with it. I think you're going to have this with Fanstoys combiners in general. But first things first, let's go through the things that I do like about it. Stability issues are here, but also some of the tightness and security around some of the ratchets are really good. Like, for example, how it attaches the upper body to the lower trousers effectively works quite nicely. The ratchets on the arms are actually pretty good. Stability around the ankles is very good. So the sturdiness is built here really well, but then whilst that's a pro, that will also be a con, and I'll get to that in a second. The paint looks fantastic. I've got him currently in toy deco mode, but I think I'm going to do a bit of a mix and match. I don't think I'll have blackjack on here. I don't even think I'll have these kind of head stacks on, even though I thought I'd like them. And I think the Toon head is better, but I like seeing the cars at the front, so I'll do a bit of matching here and there. The paint is gorgeous, and I like the fact you can see almost all of the figures, when you, particularly if you have it in toy deco, the legs aren't hiding away of Wild Rider and Breakdown. The engineering is impressive. As I say, throughout this set, you have to look at this as a 6-box set. At least that's my recommendation. There's so much extra here. It's another additional member to put it all together, which is indeed a triple changer in and of its own right. The fact it's making a combiner frame, a secondary trailer, and a base mode, yeah, there's a lot to house here. So what they have achieved with effectively 6 triple changes combining into this to look a very good looking Menasor really should be applauded. And I do like the fact you've got the 2 options to flip to, the toy deco and the Toon deco. The fact that you haven't got to buy a secondary mode if you want it, like X-Transbots do with their individual releases. If you want to do a bit of mixing and matching, you can. And for a combiner, hey, you're putting a lot of money into this, so you do want to have that option. And I like the fact that I can do a bit of a mix and matching to get the best of both worlds. The other modes, secondary trader was just not necessary, and I stand by what I say. No, Fanstoys did not say that was going to be the case right from the outset, and I said this in the Road King review. I feel this kind of rubbishes the Road King transformation because it's such a good transformation, but putting in, and if you look at the combiner videos that Fanstoys put out on their website, what you have to do to put Road King into this torso is just doubling work. And I feel if Road King was just the cab transforming and the trailer, his own trailer, made up this torso, then that's just less work to have to do. But instead, you're putting a robot and a trailer inside another trailer. So the fact that it came as a secondary trailer, all right, it was going to be a combiner frame no matter what. It didn't have to be a trailer, and you still would have had this mess to deal with. Fine, it is what it is. But that secondary trailer just didn't add anything. It looks off. It's far too long. It's way too heavy. And yes, if you want to store it in another mode, if you want to have them all in individual modes, it's something that's in keeping. But it doesn't house every accessory, I don't think. So yeah, that's a bit of a miss for me. It just wasn't necessary. The price, 700 plus. Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? Fanstoys combiners are going for that. Maybe in comparison to Ethereon, you're getting a bit more out of it because there's more pieces here, and they are, as I say, they're all triple changes. Everything here has at least 3 modes to put it into, so I guess it's going a bit further, but I've had at least 2 breakages. So I put up that first photo on the screen of his head in toy deco. I know multiple people have had that issue when you put it into trainer mode. Believe me, if you don't necessarily need it to go into trainer mode or additional modes other than combine mode, then I'd advise you don't do it and save yourself a breakage. And looking at it now on the leg, as I've got it in toy deco, you've got the wing mirror pushing on to the leg itself, so it is causing its own pressure. And this is the problem I've got with this set. There's a lot of weight going on here. There's a lot of pressure being applied, and therefore breakages are going to occur. So as such, I've had at least 2 And I think people will have a bit more, sadly. There's a lot of friction being applied into place. The combination mode was not fun for any of them, I don't think. I mean, getting the vehicles into car modes for the legs was easy enough. Wild Rider was by far the easiest. I didn't enjoy the transformation for spoiler, as I said on my review of it. Putting these two into their arm modes were fine, but they were quite different. You really did see a different approach, and this is what leads me to think there has been very much redesigns going on, because what you have to do to get Dead End, to get Bandit, that's the name, into his arm mode is considerably less involved than what you have to do for Dragstrips. Yes, they are different vehicles, different adjustments to be made, but quite different engineering and different attachments on the arms. There's a lot going on here. Putting Road King into combined mode was fine for Road King, but applying him into these positioning and engaging attack, I spent so long in this upper process, and I would advise, considering as I showed you can't get everything fully tabbed in without pushing something else out, maybe don't follow the exact steps that the Fanstoys YouTube channel showed. I actually did it following Bobby Skullface's one, putting in side panels first and then getting in that tail piece. It just worked better for me that way. The accessories are fine. I think his gun's a bit lackluster. The sword's nice enough, and I will probably store him with it. Yeah, it does a good job. I like it more than I thought I would on presentation, but I think it is quite stressful to manage and build. I think Fanstoys Aetherion was better to build. I think it was easier to build. I don't know why, maybe less involved, and it was very sequential. This was a lot of trying to keep a weight up balanced whilst applying legs, even putting it into toy deco mode and what you have to do for the shifting backwards of that. Yeah, there's a lot of things that just came across as stressful. Combining Masterpiece combiners can be stressful. I've done it with the King Toys Thunder King, and whilst I loved it come the end of it, it's a lot of heavy work and a lot of lifting to do. So it has its pros and cons. Is it better than the other offerings out there? So we have DX9 with Antilla. So Antilla's out there, and it is... That's fine, maybe looking quite simple, but I think it does have its place. I think the legs look a little bare, but it's an option. And as I understand it, the legs are much more in keeping with the Masterpiece Carbot scale. So maybe it works, but it does aim for the high-end, bigger MP scale combiner. X-Transbot's Monolith, wasn't it? Their Menasor. I think this still gives this a run for its money. I think that looks just as good. It does have its own problems, and I understand it's an absolute nightmare to combine. It's been a while since I've seen it in person and handled it, but does it give this a run for its money? Does this blow the other two out of the water? I think to a point they're much of a muchness. You will be paying considerably more for this, I think when you're looking at what secondary prices are going for, unless we forget Fanstoys have said they're not going to do reissues of this set. I do think they will in the fullness of time. It might take some years, but I think they will. But looking at what the secondary price is commanding for Road King alone, you could easily drop over £1,000 on this combiner. Maybe 1,200, maybe even 1,500. And there are other offerings available. That's one thing I'll say about Aetherion, is the only other Masterpiece Superion in town was Azeta Toys, and that's a different kettle of fish, whereas you've got multiple offerings for a Masterpiece scale with at least two other companies out there to choose from. I think you could have Fanstoys as individual modes and maybe X-Transbots as combined modes, or other ways around, but I'm pleased I've got it. I like what it does, and I'm probably going to keep it, where I was toying with the idea of selling it once I reviewed it, but I was going to put these back in individual modes, but I am not going through that transformation around this chest section again. That just wasn't fun. So he's going to stay in combined form. I do like what it does, but I do think there are stability issues. I think this round of combination between Menasor and Superion for Fanstoys have been testing their feet, dipping their toes in the water, finding their feet. Yes, they made a rob for their own back. And again, I've gone on about it, I'll say it again, I do not like the sales tax that you cannot buy these individually without buying a massive accessory pack. That needs to change, Fanstoys, and it is changing with their Constructicons. So I'd like to think when Devastator and Computron come around, there's a little bit more refinedness going on, because I don't think this is the right approach. I think this is a lot of weight, very heavy. Just make sure you've got a good place to store it and make sure it's not going to fall anytime soon. And based on this, I give this guy 3 3/4 Rodimus Star Badges, and that might seem low. I do think the likes of Dragstrips really holds it back. I think that is a very rushed, and it can't be rushed in at least 6 years, but it does feels rushed in its combination process. I think some of the building around the torso is good, at the same time well heavy-handed, very over-engineered. but the structuring is good. The alternative options are available. I like the face plates. I like the accessories, even though I do think the saw could have been better packaged. It's something that I've now got to clean up. There's electrics in his head, and I'm really not sure why, because they're not translucent eyes. But I put up a picture of it, and it's got LR44 batteries in there. I didn't know that was a thing until I took the faceplate off. And whilst the transformation videos were good, I still think there was a couple of bits that could have been missed. And breakages as well. They're minor, but at the same time, the one on the head, it's ones you see very often. So when you're dropping this kind of money, you don't want that in there, at least not in such a prominent position. That's why it gets the score it gets from me. And there we go, that is my review of Fanstoys FT-31 Marauder, their version of a G1 Menasor. I'll put some photos up at the end. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button, because I will see you on the next one.